tastes ridiculous.
Yes.
And also, all right, I guess they're guilty as hell, Fauci and all the Bidens.
Yeah, right. Well, what is it? The wicked flee when none pursueth.
Yeah.
Here, I'll let everyone on Telegram know we're going live.
Yeah.
YouTube and then X. Oh, I got to take this. Muting for a second. Okay. Work call abated. And Nima has gone to get tea or something. The Rumble stream is all weirded out. We don't get a lot of people on Rumble. Anyway, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitch, we're on Odyssey. Did I say Twitch? I meant Tweaker. X. Whatever Elon Musk is calling it these days. Doing his Nazi salute or whatever the heck it was on Inauguration Day. Okay, let's get the articles ready, hot and ready to go. Now we're just waiting for Nima. Got to send that message.
All right.
Nima,
Yes.
are you happy about the glorious happenings of today?
Yeah, it's a good day.
That Anthony Fauci has formally been pardoned is the most important, amazing thing that could have happened today. Aren't you
And
glad?
Biden's entire family.
Yes, because we all know the persecutory nature of the fascist regime coming in is going to turn the world into bizarro world, flip everything on its head, and everybody innocent is now going to be persecuted, and everybody who needs to be persecuted is now going to be put in positions of power, because that's never happened before in the history of the United States and wasn't happening as of 5 fucking minutes ago.
Yes.
You know, I really don't care about all this inauguration stuff, to be honest. I want to see like what these first day promises turn into. Like the Ukraine war is supposed to stop in 24 hours. Ross Ulbricht's supposed to be pardoned. The J6ers are supposed to be pardoned.
I guess he has for Ukraine. He has like only 19 more hours left.
Yeah, right. What else is supposed to happen? End birthright citizenship. What else is he going to get done in 24 hours?
I don't know. Nothing.
I don't know either, but what I was hoping for is he was going to raise his hand, swear in, and then like somebody in a suit with is going to show up with a bunch of executive orders like ready to go. It's like, okay, here's Ulbricht, here's this, here's that, done. Yeah,
that did happen. There was, as soon as he was done, there was a table for him to sign executive orders.
Oh, it did happen.
Yeah, but it was other. It was not just Ulbricht. It was executive orders to take power, basically, and some other you know, additional orders. The flag will always be flown at full mast now for every inauguration and stuff like that. I don't know.
Why was the flag at
Well,
half mast again? I don't even remember.
I have no idea.
Okay, because I've seen it down, and I've seen people talking about that Trump's going to lift the flag for full mast. I mean, okay, yes, I guess there's symbolic
Was it because of
importance to this sort of
MLK?
thing, but
Was it because of Martin Luther King Day? Maybe.
or was maybe because the fires, the Los Angeles fire? I don't know. Or no, I think it was Jimmy Carter. Jimmy
Oh,
Carter finally passed, and they had his funeral.
and the flag is on half mast because of
I
that.
don't know. You can tell how much we care about whether or not the flag is half mast, right? Like let's get to the meat and potatoes of the situation.
Thanks, James Clemenson, for appreciating our work. Thanks, other guy, for
John
um.
Nelligan. Yeah, Fauci being pardoned should wake people up. There are a lot of things that should have woken people up that haven't yet, so I'll believe it when I see it about people waking up over Fauci being pardoned. But the Biden crime family being blanket pardoned, it's just so it's hysterical. It's hysterical. Like, we didn't do anything wrong, so everybody's pardoned for all these things that we never did. Going back to, I mean, didn't even like pick a specific date, like back to 2014, or maybe that was Fauci or something. But here's all
But
these people that did nothing wrong, starting at this date specifically.
but then also, like, what
Yeah.
if your son? What if Hunter Biden is an axe murderer? Something that Joe Biden doesn't even know about, right? What if it turns out that he was an axe murderer? Like, I'm seriously asking, is he not going to be prosecutable for that at that point? Is that how far this goes?
Well, if anything, well, and then the J6 committee. Did you see that too? The J6 committee got full pardoned. Like, I
Yeah.
thought they did nothing wrong. So what's going on here, right? So I mean, the wicked flee when none pursueth, right? What I'm hoping is something like this at least causes to be boiled to the top these issues of, wait a minute, what are we pardoning these people for?
Well, I mean, I think definitely Congress should issue a resolution on some of these pardons, and maybe, just to let the record reflect that that's ridiculous that was done. Um,
Yes. Yes.
and yeah, but what other venues are there to punish these people basically now that the law isn't? So, if that would be a
Well,
consideration.
I mean, they were never going to be punished anyway, right? I mean, law gets weird once you get to the
No,
top.
but as much as possible. I mean, how to make their lives as difficult as
Well,
possible.
I agree with you. What I'm saying is that in the past, all these people would have been able to be axe murderers and criminals left, right, and center, and nothing bad ever would have happened to them. And now they have to get pardoned in advance for not having done anything technically, supposedly, because they're worried about, like, there actually could be repercussions in the modern day when there never would have been
But
in the past.
what kind of ridiculous concept is that on its face for the president to issue a pardon for somebody for something
He's
that
got
he
dementia, Nima.
may or
He
may not
he
have done?
he
I mean,
forgot. He was seeing the
yeah.
newsreels and he couldn't remember if like it actually happened or if it's just something he saw in the news and it was an imprinted memory. So he just had dementia and forgot, and so that explains it.
So John Nelligan is saying he's only pardoned for federal crimes. Ex murder is a state offense. I mean, I don't know if that's the case. Who's only pardoned for, because people get pardoned from what I've seen. People get pardoned who were convicted in a state, as far as I'm aware,
I
um,
don't know.
or in a city.
What I'm hoping, and I think we get this. I do think we get this. What I'm hoping is that Biden just did more damage than damage control. Because all those names on there, all the J, like, are they really that terrified
Oh, sorry, I
that
just looked
someone's
it
now
up.
going to come after them?
I just looked it up. No, a presidential pardon does not apply to state convictions. The president can only grant clemency for federal offenses. Okay, yeah, so I stand corrected. Thanks, John. But so yeah, I guess you could still come after these people on the state and local levels.
They'll all just hang out in Washington, D.C. Who's calling me now? Call you back. Okay. So, what I actually wanted to get into was some Trumponomics. Right now that the nightmare's over. Well, this all started with COVID, right? This is kind of sort of the end of the COVID nightmare. Because even though supposedly all the COVID restrictions are now closed down, we're still living with, at least up until yesterday, we were still living with the result of the COVID mail-in voting scams, right? I mean, I don't know if they would have been able to pull off cheating if the COVID thing wasn't happening, but clearly that was a big uh, tool that was in Team Illuminati Overlord's tool belt to say, hey, because of COVID, we can't actually have anybody come in to vote. We can't actually check anything. Nobody can watch us count because COVID, right? And in these key states now, Joe Biden won by 10,000 votes. So, like I said, kind of this is the end of that nightmare. So finally,
Yeah.
finally. Ugh.
Yeah, I think it felt like this for a lot of people today, and that's the vibe I got from the inauguration coverage, the little that I did see. It's like like a liberation. Like the
Yeah.
J6 people are going to get pardoned. It's currently, I guess there's talk that they're all going to get pretty much pardoned or commuted, sentences commuted or whatever.
Right.
Um,
Just to throw this in here, a quick systematic politics thing. We don't have to dive into this, but I do want to just at least put the seed in people's brains. For me, now that I understand systematic politics, and for the Center for Self-Governance teams, the big thing for the Trump administration for these next 4 years, the big home run to go for is addressing the executive office of the president. Addressing the executive office of the president. And you've probably never heard of this. I'm just going to say it really quick. Then we'll move on to economic stuff. Is that when FDR did the New Deal back during the Great Depression, the whole Social Security, medical care, jobs for everybody, infrastructure stuff, blah, 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 that was all a distraction. The big thing was FDR, through Charles Merriam, the guy whispering in his ear, basically created the administrative state. This is where you really start to see the bureaucracy taking over everything, and a large chunk of what traditionally would have been the legislative power of the federal government got shifted over to the executive office of the president that has something like 4,000 employees. For example, the Department of Justice was created as part of the executive office of the president. So basically, it was this massive shift of taking legislative power and sticking it into the hands of the executive branch. There's rumblings that I'm getting from Center for Self-Governance teams that Trump is at least listening to the idea of reorganizing the executive office of the president to give back, at least at some level, that legislative power from the executive branch back to the legislative branch. Because I mean, it's kind of like the ring of power, right? It's like, okay, yeah, we got a good guy who has it now, but if we had a bad guy who has it in the future, he still has the ring of power. Why don't we just destroy the ring of power, and then nobody can ever have it? So,
you're going to share this link that I'm sharing?
I didn't even see it. Yes, add to scene, and we will go like this and like this. What do you got pulled up here?
What you were just talking about, the executive office of the president of the United States.
Just showing I wasn't making this up. What do you got? So the office is referred to as a permanent government since many of the policy programs and the people who are charged with implementing them continue between presidential administrations. I mean, this is the secret of the systematic politics revolution, is to say we'll create an administrative state so we don't care who gets elected. It says it right there on fucking Wikipedia.
Here, this is like the biggest hint, actually. The executive and president are regarded as non-partisan and politically
non-partisan. We're non-partisan.
Because that even exists. Go ahead. Sorry, Nima.
Well, you know, that's exactly what point I wanted to make. The past few shows we've talked about. You had an interview with Zach Porku about how there's no such thing as neutrality. And I would add to that the people who claim the most neutrality are always the least neutral.
Dare we go on this topic? Because I'm going to start ranting if we keep talking about systematic politics.
Sure.
Okay. So here's what I've been learning is that what we take for granted in terms of the traditional American system, where we have these three branches of government, and we have the state, and then we have the federal, and then within the state we've got the city and the county, and all these different ways that you interact with your local representatives. And here's how the citizen takes advantage of, participates in government action, and how the government is supposed to serve the governed. And in the modern day, we all scratch our head, going, "Okay, I see that it's what it says on paper, but it doesn't seem to work like that." And everyone's jumping up and down. They've got like either the team Illuminati overlord, or it's the capitalists, or here's the lobbyists, or here the corporate takeover, the parties, or everyone's got their conspiracy theory supposedly of why that's the case. And I've dived down a lot of them, but the only one that I've seen make any sense of this from the standpoint of, hey, here's how it works, here's how the people who want to take it over are actually doing it, and here's how we do it in reverse, and here are the examples of me doing it in reverse, are people who are focused on systematic politics, who understand where this comes from. And this comes from, it's a long history, but if we're going to crystallize it to a certain point, I already gave the name, which is the name Charles Merriam, who was the advisor to 5 different presidents, 4 or 5, and specifically to Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Charles Merriam didn't like this idea of representative government and separation of powers and voting, like that. That's all old stuff. That gets in the way of progress. That gets in the. Bleh. We need something more like Plato's Republic, where there's the philosopher kings who decide everything, who decide what reality is, even if it's fake. Even if it's fake, they do it for the good of the whole system. So even if they lie, it's a noble lie to the people whom they govern, right? And executive, judicial, and legislative all get bundled up under one ball. And there's only one separation of power, which is the people with the power and the people without it. That's Plato's Republic. Charles Merriam liked Plato's Republic, but he realized, because the MFer was brilliant, is he says, wait a minute, I can't just go to the Congress floor and say, hey, you know what, let's just get rid of the government and throw it out the window, and we're going to replace it with Plato's Republic. That would never, ever, ever work. And so he devised this idea of death by 1,000 cuts, where essentially he would create a community of the competent, which are nonpartisan and neutral. They're nonpartisan. They aren't actually nonpartisan and neutral. Like, we can objectively verify that. But according to them, they're nonpartisan and neutral. They're scientific. Nima, like, if you say the word scientific, you know it's neutral, right? Like, all scientists are neutral, and they only look out for objective reality and are only concerned with the truth and the betterment of mankind, right? You're muted, or your sound's not coming through.
Yeah, this is why these people who are trained and indoctrinated this way, they tend to look for certitude and fact checking, and they think that every complicated, controversial issue is black and white, and that they have it all figured out.
And if you don't agree with them, you're an idiotic, old-thinking rube, uneducated moron.
Yeah, it's like a lack of humility for the quality of your ability to observe things. A lot of people overestimate that quality.
So, what Merriam crystallized, continuing that idea, is, okay, I'm going to create a community of the competent that believes the correct things, and the correct things are more in line with Plato's Republic and less in line with like the traditional constitutional America system. And I'll do it sneakily, where I don't have to address the partisan politics, the left side one or the right side one, or my person's in or my person's not in. I don't even have to address that. I'm going to create another system underneath, which is this administrative system, where the power slowly gets removed from the traditional avenues, but the traditional avenues are all still there, and nobody understands why the power is getting siphoned away. And to this point, stop right there, Nima. Yeah, exactly. Highlight that. Let me read this again from Wikipedia. This is under the Executive Office of the President, which is a perfect example. It's not the only one of this administrative state. The office is also referred to as the, in quotes, permanent government, since many policy programs and the people who are charged with implementing them continue between presidential administrations. Okay? So,
Yeah, it's also, I guess, I would call it the deep state, by the way.
sure. Sure. I like to say Team Illuminati Overlord, but call it whatever you want, right? The system is set up where the power gets shifted away from the traditional avenues and to these administrative states. And what's fascinating to me about it is that the original system still works. It's still there. It works exactly the same way it did before. But what they've been doing, for example, we vote for these people and they pass laws, and the law will say something like, okay, we're going to create the name an agency, the FBI. I think the FBI is an executive order. Nix that one. We're going to create the SEC. We're going to create the EPA. We're going to create the DEA. Whatever. And the DEA, or whatever the three-letter alphabet agency is, has the authority to do fucking everything. And then they leave it at that. Right?
Yeah,
so,
it's administrative legislation, basically. Administrative legislating. So giving the administrator the power to legislate. Which, I think actually Charles Merriam discusses that in his book Systematic Politics as well. That's a phenomenon. That's a thing that happens. And sometimes he thinks it's good, I guess. Sometimes maybe not, but yeah. Okay, enough about Charles Merriam, I guess.
Yes, thank you. We'll stop my rant. Okay, so just putting that in everybody's ear. We'll do more shows about that in the future. But there's a way to fight back against that that's incredibly effective that people are doing right now. And there's teams right now regularly going to Washington, D.C. to try to get into Trump's people's ears about the executive office of the president, which is super exciting and nothing you've ever heard of because everybody's too busy freaking out about whatever's going on X right now. So
yeah, it's John Nelligan says sometimes it does work. My father always said everyone has an axe to grind. Everyone has an agenda. Yes, that's true, except for me, of course, but that's different.
Nima is perfectly nonpartisan and neutral. Everybody else can't rise to his philosopher king status. And Nima, I figure this out. Whenever you share something, your title goes away.
But I see it. I see it.
No, I mean the Irida TV underneath your name.
I see it still. I see.
Yeah, because I just added it like 2 seconds ago.
Weird.
So
it's too much light. Sorry, I'm turn off this light.
Nima's going dark. Okay.
I think this actually makes me lighter. Anyway.
Okay. Whatever. All right. So I actually wanted to bring up this article because it's Inauguration Day, which is exciting, I will admit. Let me zoom in a little bit. So 4 key economic takeaways from Trump's inaugural address. So on this show, if you listen to it to any time, you know we don't even though we like Trump, we voted for Trump. We're happy Trump won. We don't necessarily agree with economic anything that comes from him.
Yeah.
So let's just dive into this and see what we find. So this was published today, obviously. Someone must have used an AI to publish this as fast as he could. In his inaugural speech, President Donald Trump laid out 4 ways he plans to bring America and its economy into a golden age. Speaking at the Capitol Rotunda Monday, Trump laid out his new administration's America First, in quotes, economic agenda focused on fighting inflation, promoting oil drilling instead of green energy, taxing foreign trade, and deporting unauthorized immigrants. The golden age of America begins now, he said. From this day forward, our country will flourish and be respected again all over the world. We'll be the envy of every nation, and we will not allow ourselves to be taken advantage of any longer. During every single day of the Trump administration, I will very simply put America first. Trump repeated key economic themes of his presidential campaign and outlined the ways to bring them about. So let's get to the first one. Tariffs on foreign trade. Trump said he would establish an external revenue service, a counterpart to the IRS.
Yeah, actually, heard that speech, and also his new commerce secretary gave a speech and talked about um, how actually he talked about how evil the IRS is, basically, which I thought was a pretty cool thing for somebody in the administration to actually talk about the IRS as an enemy. Um, and so he also he talked about the evils of the IRS, and so that's why we're establishing the External Revenue Service. And I was just thinking, okay, but you're going to get rid of the IRS, right? But he
That
didn't.
was exactly what was going to come out of my mouth.
He didn't say that, unfortunately. So it's like, wow. So now we have another revenue service. Yeah,
Yeah,
yay, great.
yeah, right.
Maybe get rid of the first one. That would be a good move.
Well, let's get into that because you were saying something in a private conversation a while ago that I'm hoping that you remember and start saying again once I get through these paragraphs. So he wants to make the counterpart to the IRS that would collect tariffs on goods imported from other countries. Those duties are currently handled by U.S. Customs and Border Protection, an arm of the Department of Homeland Security. The new department could be a busy one since Trump has pledged to impose high tariffs on foreign trade, including Mexico, Canada, and China. Just to be clear, this is obviously propaganda in and of itself. My understanding is he's threatened to use tariffs if they don't change their behavior. It's not like he's just throwing tariffs up to throw tariffs up. He's like, hey, we want you to do something. You're not doing what I want to do. And if you don't do it, I'm going to put on tariffs. That's my understanding. We are establishing the External Revenue Service to collect all tariffs, duties, and revenues, he said. It will be massive amounts of money pouring into our treasury coming from foreign sources, which the government doesn't need at all. We'll rant about that shortly. Many economists say that the cost of tariffs is not external at all, since merchants typically pass the cost of import taxes on to U.S. consumers. Forecasters have predicted Trump's tariffs will stoke inflation should he go through with implementing them. Establishing a new federal agency would require Congress to pass a law doing so. Nima.
Yeah,
So, there's a lot to unpack here. Go ahead.
I don't necessarily think that that will be the case. They always, this is what we've said before, right? In the mainstream news, they talk a lot about tariffs, which is taxes on foreigners, and every single new tax on a foreigner is a big economic problem that will be bringing about this exact outcome, which is inflation in this case. But they never talk about domestic taxes at all. Like they don't seem to give a damn at all about taxing Americans, but they have this huge sensitivity to taxing foreigners, which is just, I think, is crazy and overblown. Maybe there will be some impact of from these tariffs on prices, but I don't know. Honestly, I don't know which we'd have to just. Okay, why am I?
Because
By
I put you there.
myself now? Okay.
Because you talk it a lot, and I wanted to focus on you.
Okay.
No,
Because then I can't see the article, so because I don't have it on up here. So anyway, yeah, whatever. It's we will have to see what happens. Tariffs have always been a thing in this country and other countries. How big the difference is going to be, we'll have to wait and see. But at the same time, taxes. If maybe they follow through with that final conclusion of, okay, we have the external revenue service. We don't need the internal revenue service.
that's what I'm hoping.
Anymore.
Yeah.
And slash taxes domestically drastically. That would more than counterbalance some taxes on foreigners, and we're not even that much of an export-dependent economy to begin with. So, I mean, we'll see. Inflation. What causes inflation is to ban drilling for oil all over the place, and how about that one? Because that's going to be a huge counter effect, I think. Because under this administration, they're gonna lift a lot of these bans, and there's going to be more plentiful supply, and so that'll bring oil prices down probably, and maybe also ending the stupid war in the Ukraine. That'll stop a lot of the supply chain disruptions around the world. These things can all, and then also, there's some budget. I mean, we will. This remains to be seen.
We'll get into the budget debate. Yeah.
Yeah, but some supposedly budget cuts. If they're big cuts, then that'll have an impact on private sector income. But if the tax effects are commensurate, then maybe not, or maybe the tax cuts are even bigger than these spending cuts. So not necessarily that doesn't have to be a problem here necessarily.
Well, I'm trying to think of which thing to say because I got about 5 things going through my head at the same time just from this one article or one paragraph from the article and what you just said. But I want to go back to the point you were making about, okay, an external tax, I mean, yeah, there's pass on to the consumer and stuff, but essentially it's a tax on a foreigner versus, say, income tax is a tax on the citizen. And there's zillions of papers and professors and organizations and nonprofits and blah, 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 that have all the reasons why all these tariffs are bad. But as soon as, oh, we're going to raise the tax on the local population, like,
yeah, give a shit. It's the price you pay. It's the price you pay for a civilized society. Shut up.
Right. Well, and then I'm not changing the subject here.
But oh no, Skoda gets taxed. Oh no, poor Skodans.
What's Skoda?
Some European car company. Aren't they Swedish or something? I don't know.
Bukele, the president of El Salvador, the guy who's been turning El Salvador on its head, right? I was listening to him give a speech on how he's been all the nonpartisan, neutral Plato Republic fuckers throughout the world have been jumping down his back over the fact that he arrested all the criminals and gang members in his country. And he said one of the criticism that he received was that, hey, okay, you can arrest everybody, but you can't do it all at once. And the reason is all those criminals, all those gang members that are stealing and shaking people down, they spend that money into the economy. So if you arrest everybody at once, it's going to stop that income flow and it's going to stop your economy. So you have to do it a little bit at a time in order not to have your economy collapse. And I mean, his response was like, are you serious? Because the economy can't run because everybody knows they're going to get stolen from. So everybody who wants to work honestly can't work because they know they're going to get robbed. And he went into like, this is what the supposed smart people are telling everybody. These are the people who like try to come up with policy for how the world is supposed to work. Right. And that just reminds me of what you just said in terms of like, here's all these published papers and professors talking about why tariffs are bad. Yeah, well, the same people are fucking telling Bukele of El Salvador not to arrest the criminals because that's going to have a negative impact on the motherfucking economy. Like, can we just ignore this shit? Can we just ignore this shit? It's so dumb.
Yeah, the level of discourse has become very low over the past decade or two, you could say. And maybe it's returning to some sort of balance, some semblance of sanity.
Yes. Well, and another thing that I think is really important with these tariffs is a country being able to manufacture its own goods. It's a matter of national security that a country has its own manufacturing capacity. And since what was it, the late 90s, early 2000s, the United States has embarked on this, neoliberal send manufacturing to the cheapest country that you could possibly find, and then just hollow out our own country. And the idea of raising a tariff, not to raise money, but to just say, look, we need to protect what's going on the inside so we can recreate our own manufacturing capacity. I mean, okay, inflation may do this or the economy might do that or whatever, but in the end, you're employing more people and you're employing more resources.
Yeah, and I think especially the U.S. is a country with such a large industry capacity that's unutilized that there's really no issue here. None of these things are going to be bad for the working class and middle class in America, I don't think.
John Nelligan said doorbell.
Doorbell.
Maybe it was my
I'll get it.
What the hell was I going to say? I got distracted with doorbell. But, oh, yeah. And then just, I think Trump has also hit on an important point, which is that everybody expects the United States, which is by far the most powerful country on earth by like any metric that you slice things, right? That we're just supposed to play nice with everybody and let everybody piss on our face and make fun of us and take advantage of us, and we're just got to go, oh, okay, that's just what we're going to have to do. I'm sorry. When we're, I mean, it's kind of like Atlas Shrugged. We're kind of holding the whole system together at the moment. Right. The United States literally patrols the world's oceans to make sure that people can trade without having their trade ships molested since the end of World War II, right? Which
Yeah,
apparently
not anymore.
not
They're not.
anymore. But that doesn't change my point, which is we've literally been holding everything up for everybody, and we're just supposed to pretend like we're not. And so, I mean, I would argue when Trump's talking about tariffs from Canada, for example, when he's like, oh, Canada's taking all our money because there's more imports from Canada than we have exports to Canada, which means more goods are coming to the United States and money going to Canada than the other way around. Therefore, in quotes, we're losing money. I mean, we understand MMT and we know, okay, well, we just printed pieces of paper and digital currency and got real goods and services in return. That isn't necessarily a bad deal.
It's actually a net positive. Yeah, in
Yes.
terms of real resources available in this country, it's a net positive.
Yes. So I disagree with Trump in terms of, we got to get the money back into the coffers. Where did the money come from? We could type the number into the fucking coffers. We don't need a trade rebalancing in order to get money. But I think in order to get national security, in order to build out our own manufacturing capacity, I do agree. If we put up the tariff in order to build that out, but again, going back to what you were saying, okay, now we have the external revenue service, but we keeping the internal revenue service.
I was hoping
we're gonna have some budget cuts.
I was kind of hoping they just renamed the IRS into the ERS.
Yes.
They're just going to stop their old activities and now they focus on foreigners. But I guess they've started a whole new agency.
Yes.
Well,
So,
whatever.
but as you and I know, if they, if there's this hyper focus on getting more money into the government, which essentially destroys the money because the government neither has nor doesn't have money. They're just a scorekeeper, right? Go watch our other shows if you're completely confused about what we're talking about.
I was actually thinking if these tariffs are substantial, that could make the dollar appreciate quite a bit.
It could, and I guess it would also change the trade deficit significantly. If less imports started coming in, that'd be less private sector net savings going out.
If
that
happens, yeah. If
that happens, yeah. So there is that, but yeah. I mean, we need to take another look at Argentina because everyone's going, "Whoa, Argentina did it! Woohoo! They balanced the budget. The inflation's down. Yay!"
Yeah. We should take another look at Argentina for sure.
Yeah, but the point that I wanted to make was if we don't get the taxes down first before we start bringing all this money into the federal government because they don't fucking need it, we're in for an unpleasant shock.
Yeah, basically, budget cuts without tax cuts are like tax raises, basically. It's like a tax hike on the private sector. Even though people absolutely won't recognize it as that and won't know that that's what it is. But economically, it has the same effect.
Well, I'm hoping that Trump knows all this, but he understands his base won't understand it, and he's going to do what you just said, is just change the I to an E, and we'll have the external revenue service instead of the internal revenue service, and we'll just be done with it. That's what I hope.
This has been a discussion during his campaign this time around. It wasn't so much last time, but this campaign is popped up here and there, the discussion of getting rid of the IRS and how that's totally doable. I mean, this used to be absolutely insane fringe Ron Paul talk. I remember when I supported this in 2008 or 2007, maybe even 2006, 4. But yeah, 2008 certainly, that election. He was just denounced as a lunatic, and I think Trump was actually also running in that election, by the way, but not as successful, obviously. But definitely, it's amazing to see that has now become a nationwide mainstream point.
Yes. Let's keep reading. Fighting inflation. This is point number 2. Voter anger over inflation under the presidency of Joe Biden was a major factor in Trump's victory over former Vice President Kamala Harris. Doesn't that sound great? Former Vice President Kamala Harris?
Yeah.
It's the first time I read that. I feel pretty good reading that, Nima.
Yeah.
Former Vice President Kamala Harris in November, and Trump said he would use the power of his office to bring it down. I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices, he said. As of December, the cost of living has increased 2.9% over 12 months, as measured by the Consumer Price Index, higher than pre-pandemic levels. So inflation is bad, is basically what this last paragraph is saying.
Well, it's
I'm
saying
curious
that
how he's going to get this done.
no, it's saying it's actually much lower than at its peak, which was 2022.
Oh,
It peaked at 9.1%.
Nima, how do you think he's going to? I mean, you already mentioned one point, but I'll throw it over to you. How do you
That
think
is
Trump might get this done?
well, that is the thing. Lifting all possible bans on oil drilling and gas drilling and pipelines. These are going to bring prices down of the most important commodity, right? So this commodity affects all prices all over the world. One of the main reasons of this recent inflation that we've seen over the past years has obviously been problems with acquiring this natural resource or routing it because of a certain war that started in a certain area and certain sanctions that people started imposing on each other. So, and the U.S. always has this thing, right? Democrats come in and they ban drilling in ANWR and they ban the pipelines and try to ban drilling all over the place.
Ban pipelines unless they're in another country, Nima. Come on.
Yeah.
Remember, Joe Biden banned ours, but he approved the Russian one
Well,
on
and
day
then
2 or
they
whatever his
also
presidency.
blew up. Well, they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline.
Well,
So I mean,
details.
these are just these are just insane activists, not oil, experts or geological oil engineers or whatever. So yeah, I think oil prices can come down as a result of these things. And these are very important prices in the economy. And as this article that you're reading from just pointed out, inflation has already come down to 2.9%, which is pretty low. It's no inflationary pressures that I see at the moment, other than maybe if there's going to be some kind of ridiculous budget deficit, but that doesn't seem to be the case. Like more discussions of cutting spending, but then tax cuts. We'll have to see what comes from that. No, obviously, new war breaking out or new oil supply shocks, whatever, can change that all. But there's no inflationary pressures like we had 2 years or 3 years ago, where we had this massive deficit expansion. We had the people or
everybody paid to stay home from work.
People paid to stay home. Like basically, productivity came way down. Industry capacity utilization obviously came way down. With everyone staying home and just a few mega corporations supplying you everything. And then supply chain mucked up, and it became very difficult to plan ahead. And all these things were instrumental in the inflation, and obviously oil price, like I said. So these factors have all kind of gone away or leveled out, I would say. So there is this Trump trade going on. I've read this here and there in financial news.
Trump trade?
Yeah, the Trump trade. People expecting inflation to rise because of the tariffs, basically. And that's just a very one variable analysis of the whole situation, I think. I mean, that's also the reason why the long-term treasury yields have gone up so much, is because people think, oh, well, inflation is going to go up again. The Fed is going to actually start raising rates again. So the long-term, 30-year treasury went over 5% again. I think actually, as an investor, these are pretty attractive rates that I might take advantage of sooner than later. Because I don't think that rates will stay this high. I don't think inflation will be a big factor, and then there will be no justification to keep the rates at these levels, based on the Fed's ideology of, well, raising rates is to fight inflation, and lowering rates is to promote inflation.
Which we've done multiple shows debunking that left, right, and center.
More like the opposite.
We don't need to do it again here now.
No, unless
Well,
somebody requests, unless somebody wants to hear us talk about the same damn thing over and over again.
they can. I mean, yeah, I know it's weird stuff if you're here new for the first time, but I don't think energy is the number one
Yeah,
place.
housing,
I
I
think it's
guess,
number
is
two.
another big one, right?
What's that?
Housing is another big
No,
factor,
I'm
right?
talking labor. I think labor is number
Sure.
one. And this is coming to you as a business owner who has a very labor-intensive business, so maybe I'm a little biased. Um,
Yeah, service sector. So yeah,
yeah,
definitely more labor
but
costs.
once we get down to point number 4 here, deporting people, I wonder if there is a significant deportation, how that's going to affect labor prices.
Oh, what, this is such
Yeah, yeah,
bullshit.
oh, yeah. No, tell me, because I'm one of the big people that deal with it. So tell me why you don't think it's going to be a big deal.
Well, there are, I mean, resources in this country are underutilized. We have unemployment that's, I don't know, 4%, I think, or 4.5%. Um, and I've never heard the argument for immigration as an I mean, immigration as an inflation fighter. It's just such a pick and choose approach
Yeah,
of what arguments you accept for promoting your immigration policy. Of course, it sounds good. Okay, and I mean there are some jobs, right, where people are paid less, and so then the price of the goods is maybe a little cheaper, but maybe it's more expensive to maintain an entire foreign labor force that you can't speak English with, and that you have to go through and duck, and hide, and be secretive about your employment. For big employers, it's not really an option, anyways. So
yeah.
I
I
don't
would never
really,
do it. I would never
yeah,
employ
it's
an
crazy. It's
illegal immigrant.
dangerous to do.
Yeah,
So there are maybe some do it, but I don't see how that has this giant effect on bringing our prices down.
you mean up? Oh, you mean if you bring him in, how he would bring him
Yeah.
down? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
Well,
mean,
on the flip
obviously,
side,
I do see the argument for the low wages and whatnot. But then, like I said, there's other unwritten costs or unspoken costs to this whole situation. There's also crime that goes up because a lot of people come here. If
the El
immigration,
Salvador example.
right,
Yeah,
if a lot of people can come here from other countries, they can. It's a clean slate for a lot of people. They can leave their country where they're being persecuted. Sorry, not where they are supposed to be arrested for some crime they committed. So obviously, in that case, you want to leave and live in some different country where you can start with a clean slate,
or take welfare, right?
take
I
welfare
mean,
and all
it's
these
not a
things.
big secret that, I mean, particularly in these more blue states. I'm going to give Oregon for an example because my business is in Oregon and I get the state updates and stuff. I mean, they're very very clearly trying to push. We offer this service regardless of immigration status.
Look,
We offer this service we will not ask about immigration status when you're asking for whatever public service. And so stopping that net drain. And then I also wonder, I'm contradicting myself. I'm playing devil's advocate with myself from what I just brought up. I also wonder, because you brought up housing before I brought up labor, if you take however many millions of people, I don't know, 10 million, 20 million, 30 million, does anybody know? If you just get rid of a million of them, how is that going to
so
affect housing?
by the way,
Because, yeah,
so like you said, a lot of people, there are stats on this. We can pull a lot of illegal immigrants are on welfare in this country. So you pay them to do nothing, and they get to rent and live in apartments that would have been available otherwise. This is not a hypothetical issue. This is a very well-known issue, for example, in the UK and other European countries, where their real estate is being filled up with illegal immigrants or asylum seekers who we don't know what's going to happen with them down the road. Um, so there's an inflationary effect of having these people here. Yeah, there are also those who work and bring wages down, but they're only ever picking and choosing one particular side of this argument. There's also, I was just going to say, welfare payments in general give people money to do nothing and creates consumer product demand without a corresponding consumer product supply rising. That's inflationary, by the way. Have you ever heard a Democrat argue to you, oh, we shouldn't do welfare payments because they could be inflationary?
yeah. back to the picking and choosing.
We care so much about
Jesus,
inflation suddenly, right?
speaking of Hispanics, is it Jesus or Jesus? I know we asked before. I can't remember. I'm gonna call you Jesus because it's funny right now. Jesus comments. Actually, I think I can bring these comments up. Boom! Look at this.
Oh,
Look how
nice.
fancy this is. Current
Whoa.
inflation has more to do with corporations being able to raise prices because they can. That's why you hear about corporate record profits.
Current inflation has more to do with corporations being able to raise prices.
Because they can.
I mean, yeah, that's
I actually believe that to a certain extent.
well, by definition, inflation is caused by corporations raising prices. But so that's like a by definition that's true.
Yeah, but I understand the point
Now,
that he's making.
yeah. So he's saying because of
Yeah.
pricing power, which there are companies who do have pricing power. It's the objective, by the way, according to MMT capitalist theory, it's the objective of any capitalist entity, any capitalist corporation trying to maximize its profit is to maneuver all the resources they have so they can attain pricing power, which gives them the ability to charge and maintain a certain price, because that price then determines the revenue they make in the future. It determines how much they be able to borrow, how much collateral of revenue stream they have to borrow more, to expand more, invest more, blah, 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 blah.
Well, and then I'll even say this just from a human nature standpoint. I've run businesses both as a sole proprietor and as a business owner now, and you get as much as you can get. You price, like if you price something, and then you find out the next day that you could have gone 20% up and people are happy to pay 20% up, bam, your price is just went up 20%. Because you're stupid if you don't. Like,
Yeah.
if people are willing to pay me that much, why wouldn't I do it for that much?
I mean, so I'm just saying,
Yeah.
so, but so what he's saying, current inflation is more to do with corporations being able to raise price because they can, and that's just a fact of the market. Corporations can raise price, and if they can, they will raise prices. Now,
Right.
Now, what he maybe one implication that some people walk away with, well, then we need price controls. We should stop them from raising prices. That creates other potential problems that, based on certain, obviously, neoliberal economic theories
Sure.
that may or may not hold some merit. But one of the things that classical economics suggests can happen is that then you cap your product supply below the optimum level. So you disencourage corporations to produce because you're doing price controls. And otherwise, they'd be producing more products.
Well, and then also the libertarian / ANCAP answer to this, which I think I agree with, is, well, take the regulations out so competitors will come up going, hey, I'll do it for half that.
Yeah.
Right. So, because I remember during the first Trump presidency, the idea was get rid of 2 regulations for every new one that you create. And then Biden was immediately like, oh, put them all back. Right. So, again, maybe just having the idea of let's allow people to do business.
Yeah.
Will help the prices come down just from competitors going, okay, I'll take that money for 10% less. Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here's Jesus said basically what I just said. Yes, price control, or better yet, create a system to design for competition. Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. I'm going to move on unless you got something more to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, I want to recognize that maybe there are some situations where the regulatory framework has created corporations that enjoy enormously excessive pricing power, and to impose price controls on them, maybe that is fine. It'll just be fine because they're a monopoly supplier of one commodity.
Maybe we should do price controls on sorry to interrupt you, on pharmaceuticals. On vaccines.
Yeah. Right.
Sorry to derail. Please continue.
No, I mean, definitely price controls. I mean, it's ideally so that they just stop producing shit, so just go away and stop selling us pills and all that crap. And there's something else I was just thinking of that escaped my head right now. You said price controls on. I forgot.
I'll give you 5 seconds to remember before I read on. How about that?
Not, yeah, too much pressure.
Okay. Point number 3. We're on number 3 out of the 4 economic points, apparently, from Trump's inaugural address. Trump said promoting oil drilling. We actually touched on this. Trump said reducing energy costs was key to fighting inflation. Prices for gasoline, natural gas, and electricity are major factors in household budgets, as well as a measure of inflation such as the CPI.
And
Trump said
corporate budget.
That's exactly what I was going to say, too. Trump said he would issue executive orders to promote domestic oil production and reverse Biden policies promoting green energy and electric cars. Today, I will also declare a national energy emergency. We will drill, baby, drill.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. So, but like, I hope that there is a plan in place to do legislative action this time, because this is something that Trump did last time around. Signed a bunch of executive orders, and they feel good. It's a quick fix, and then next asshole comes in and reverses all those.
That's what I was saying with the Office of Executive President at the beginning. Yes.
Right. That would be a strategic approach to tackling that for sure.
Well, and I mean, like you just mentioned, let me pull the article back up. The article focused on household budgets, major factors in household budgets, like the utility bill. That's such a small component of what energy prices do.
Well, also the pump, the price you pay at the pump, right? The money.
Yeah, I was including that in your household budget, but like I'm thinking more how much natural gas is needed to operate this factory that produces the thing that you pay to get gas to go to, you put gas in your car to go to the store to buy.
Right. Yeah.
Right, or the Amazon truck that delivers it to you are now paying $1.69 a gallon instead of $3.69 a gallon. How does that affect pricing for everything?
Yeah.
Right.
And by the way, with AI, just saying good luck to companies like Germany who have effectively destroyed their energy supply sources and capacity to generate cheap energy, because in this AI revolution that's happening, and if you want to compete in this industry, access to energy will be paramount. Forget about how important access to energy is right now. When we get to a world with way more AI data centers all over the place than we have now, way more AI in business use and in personal use. Good luck competing in that world. One of the biggest competitive factors to succeed in AI will be cheap energy supply, more than in any other industry ever in the past, I think. And also crypto mining, obviously. Those two will be going hand in hand.
Yeah, well, and just going back to the energy in particular, the green energy thing, right? Reverse Biden's policies promoting green energy. Like, are we past the point yet as a civilization where we could stop pretending green energy is green? Right. I mean, this is still the whole goddamn. Oh, the CO2 is causing the Earth to heat up, and so we need to stop the CO. Like, we're still making policies based on that.
But look, for example, the DEI has been a huge flop this past year. All kinds of companies are exiting DEI initiatives, are exiting this DEI designation in publicly traded or in mutual fund classifications. Starbucks has just announced they're slashing a bunch of staff. I think some of it might also be DEI related. So there's a good news already, right, on this front, and there's probably going to be more down the over the next couple.
So you're saying hopefully this starts to bleed over into this CO2 is bad.
Well, so green energy is so green energy is like not a DEI, but what was the other acronym? Social governance, ESG, right,
Yes.
right. So that's also kind of gone, I think. I mean, I don't think
it's not gone. I think it's fighting.
Yeah,
it's
but like,
gone
for example,
yes.
Wells Fargo just exited some conglomeration of climate virtue signalers, and tons of companies have exited. The exact names escape me right now, but I just read an article about that. That whole thing is just imploding slowly but surely. And so the word green energy, I don't really think anyone really believes that it's actually
No, people
green. I
do.
hear the
That's what
word.
I'm saying. Is
It's like
that like
it's become a pejorative almost, I would say.
yeah? Well,
It's like
in
you're,
that it, oil is the green energy because it creates the CO2 to make the fucking earth green, right? I mean, it's just so dumb. And I understand you're
yeah.
not like if you actually want to get change done, you can't battle the noble lie. But at the same time, we've got to keep putting information out about like, okay, here's reality, and this is the lie. That these policies aren't green. So yeah, I
Right.
wonder how much getting away from in quotes the green energy policy is going to affect inflation.
And oil isn't going away, so I think it's not, a lot of these people operate on this assumption that oil will be gone sooner than later, anyways, and so it'll be irrelevant because of peak oil and all these
Peak oil
theories.
that happened in the 1970s, but
Yeah,
never
which
happened
the
yet.
exact opposite is happening empirically. Or the oil supplies are growing more and more every decade. When the geologists do their services, more and more and more. That if there's one consistent pattern, that's what it is. And then there's this biogenic origin of oil theory, which suggests that it's not from fossil fuels, but actually from organic material, and the Earth keeps producing it. So
However the Earth produces it, I believe that the Earth does produce it because I think the fossil fuel theory doesn't. Not that it doesn't hold water; it doesn't hold oil.
right, so yeah, so so that given the fact that there's constantly going to be oil everywhere all the time, like even if people start phasing it out somewhere, let's say hypothetically we can do a market game theory exercise, people start phasing out oil, then it's going to become incredibly plentiful for everyone else, and there's going to be a point where it's going to be so cheap to ramp its usage up again. So it'll always be competitive to some extent. So I don't think there's such a thing as oil is going away. It's gonna be probably supplanted by some way more nuclear is probably coming over the
Yeah,
next year.
I think nuclear is going to be the key as long as you don't build on a damn fault line.
Yeah, yeah.
Don't put
So,
it
but
here.
this
Don't
is
put it in
already
Japan.
happening.
Yeah.
Microsoft has signed a 10-year contract with Constellation Energy Corporation to supply their data center from 3 Mile Island, apparently. Several other big AI, big data companies working on similar projects. There's going to be small modular and medium-sized modular and large, not so modular nuclear reactors just prevalent all over the place down the road, I think. There might be
Steven, did you
some.
ever play Fallout?
Yeah, I did. The
Did
first one, I think, or
oh,
two.
just the first. Oh, you didn't play any of the 3D ones?
No, no, no. I played
Oh,
the 2D.
sorry for the distraction. So obviously in Fallout everything is nuclear, right? Because it
Yeah.
was the atomic era when this happened, and there's cars all over the place, the old rundown cars, and if you blow up a car, it turns into a mini mushroom cloud. Because it was nuclear powered. It's so funny. And I just thought of that when you were like, oh, there's going to be all these modular nuclear reactors everywhere. I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
no, I
little,
mean,
these little
I,
mini Fallout nuclear
I hope we're not going to be
mushroom
putting
clouds.
nuclear reactors in cars because that could be an exciting car accident one day.
Before we get to point number 4 here, Jesus here is throwing comments at us left and right. And there's one he brought up. I'll show it. I'm not going to answer this because I want you to be more clear in your question, Jesus. Why is it that Walmart has so many employees that qualify for food stamps? What exactly are you asking? Because I think that might turn into an interesting discussion. I'm going to hide that for now.
Why are
And
they underpaying their employees so much? Is what I'm
are they
reading.
underpaying their employees, or is
Yes,
what
that's what
about the
I'm reading.
threshold for uh, what it takes to qualify for
That's not what he
welfare?
means, but okay, yeah. Um,
No, I
I'm
know
pretty.
he doesn't mean that. I'm saying if we're going to objectively answer the question, is Walmart paying too little? They probably are. I'm not disagreeing with it. Is Walmart paying too little, or Walmart doesn't control where that government threshold is for who gets
Well,
benefits?
right. Also, plus Walmart is one of the largest employers in the country, so I would expect them to have a lot of employees on food stamps, just because they have a lot of employees in general.
Right.
So yeah. Plus, they're not like Google or whatever. They're a big tech company. Actually, they are to some extent now, more than they used to be, but they
But I'm sure
still.
the big tech people aren't on food stamps.
Right. No, but they still have. Maybe in San Francisco they might be. But um, whatever. It doesn't matter. What's
Keep
What's the
going.
next thing you said there?
He said if you want green energy, localized food production. Yeah, I mean you're changing the
Yeah.
definition of green energy here, but I totally agree. It's unnecessary for food to travel 3,000 miles to get to your plate. I mean,
Yeah.
I hope RFK can push this
Yeah.
in some reasonable direction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'll
No, I
say
mean,
if there's
I
go
saw
ahead.
just recently, just to illustrate how insane the Trump derangement syndrome people have gone. The former so-called organic food fans and people there. I saw one person who's a very avid California hippie type person going to what's this god awful event that I never want to go to, Burning Man, right? Where they this pagan ritual where they burn the some statue at the end.
I think it'd be fun to go to that myself, but
But right, no, but I just can't stand these people because I know the kinds of people who are there because I lived in San Francisco for 15 years. But just
yeah,
saying, they pretend to be in this natural world. There's no money in Black Rock City. There's only tents, and we all just
even though we
we
spent
all just
money to get here,
kumbaya
yes.
happy. Yeah, no, they're very wealthy people who go there regularly, right? But they're somehow telling themselves that they're these nature freaks. And those people are concerned about RFK. And one of them shared an article recently, and literally one of the points criticizing RFK was that he promotes organic farming. And I'm like, that sounds like a feature, not a bug to me.
Yeah.
I would want to promote organic farming.
Well, and then
And
if the
the
permaculture
argument,
hippies,
I can tell you, the argument is going to become Democrats are suddenly going to say that organic farming is bad because it makes food price because it causes inflation because it makes food more expensive. So that's going to be the argument.
community competent, nonpartisan, unbiased, neutral,
Yeah.
neutral argument there.
There was at least the argument in this article.
Well, before you said that, Nima, I was going to say if there's one thing I want hippies in charge of, it's food quality. But if they have
Yeah.
Trump derangement syndrome so fucking badly, maybe I don't even want them in charge of that.
Yeah, no, they just turn into the opposite somehow.
No, if the permaculture people can ever get their act together, which is probably the equivalent of removing these crazy lefties out of their sphere.
So Jesus is saying here, his point is to pay people so they can't qualify for food stamps. Okay, or maybe just get rid of the food stamps, but I understand what you mean.
I understand what you mean, but Walmart only controls one half of the
Right.
equation.
It's not their
Yeah.
fault that the food stamp program exists, right?
And,
But
and it's not their fault where the threshold is for that food stamp qualification.
But also, I would say, since Nima said welfare creates inflation, eventually we have to tax corporations. Better yet, CEO compensations that can't borrow against their stocks.
Hey, Zeus, are you a crazy lefty? What's going on here?
No, but
I'll bring this up. Read that out loud louder.
I just wanted to comment on the previous people. So yeah. So the food stamps issue, we promote what's called a transition job or federal job guarantee or federal transition job, so that we won't need food stamps or welfare programs. There will be no involuntary unemployment possible in the economy, and everyone will have a job
If they want it.
yeah,
Yes.
if everyone. Now, of course, there's people who are disabled and whatnot. I'm not talking about those exceptional cases, right? I'm just talking about anyone who wants money can find a job under such a program. So, since Nima said the welfare creates
We'll load it up.
inflation, eventually we have to tax corporations. Better yet, CEO compensation so they can't borrow against their stocks.
I think you're mixing too many things here.
Yeah.
So first of all,
eventually-
corporations are already taxed a lot.
Right, they're already taxed, and CEO compensation is also taxed already, and so not allowing them to borrow against their stocks, it's up to the bank. In my opinion, the bank who loans them money can assess that risk. I don't know why I would, flat out ban that practice altogether. It's
Well,
actually, the thing is with borrowing against your assets. A lot of it would go away if you just abolished capital gains taxes, because this is actually a pretty intelligent trick that I'm currently considering possibly. That you borrow against your assets instead of selling your assets and incur a huge capital gains tax. If if you borrow against the asset, you only incur the the interest cost. So I guess but you can pay that off over time. You'd have to kind of
Do a spreadsheet to figure out
compare,
which one's better.
calculate, yeah.
Well, I think in particular what Jesus is referring to is if you have company X and the CEO has stock in that company X, particularly if CEO started the company and made himself CEO, so he's got a lot of stock. Once that company goes public, he's not allowed to sell the stock legally because that's a pump and dump, basically. But you could borrow against it. You can hypothecate the shares in order to actualize the profit from that, which is the biggest, hardest way to make money in terms of like how do I get money out of my business. I think he's referring specifically to that.
Could be, yes. So
Yeah.
you can sell your shares. You just have to be on. You have to register your insider trades, and it has to be on a schedule, and then you can sell the stocks. You can't. But it all depends on the CEO's negotiations with his employer as to when they'll be allowed to sell their shares and all that stuff. We got a new comment,
Yeah,
Boba.
Boba.
It's not how much the employees make, but their expenses. Need to lower worker expenses so we can pay them less. This also makes American labor more competitive globally. Yeah, I mean, payroll
Yeah,
tax, right? Let's get rid of the payroll tax, and that'll solve this whole discussion in one fell
yeah,
swoop.
that,
The
that's
most
actually the
regressive,
best point ever.
yeah.
Get rid of all income related anything taxes.
Yeah, I'm just saying, even if you want to keep the income tax, if you get rid of the payroll tax, it's probably one of the most regressive taxes in the country. Hits the working class the hardest.
Well,
And
I'll be clear. Let me give an example of how hard it works because I pay how much? $20,000 a month for my business in payroll taxes, something like that. Which is both my part of it and the employee's part of it, supposedly, right? And the what Nima's getting at is that it's also called the self-employment tax. People think that you actually pay more taxes for being self-employed. It looks that way, but that's just because you don't see that when you're employed, the employer is paying the other half of the tax, but the same amount of money is still going to the IRS. But the payroll taxes are the Social Security, Medicare, and federal unemployment taxes, right? And
also state employment taxes in many cases, they're pretty relevant. Like in California, for example, you have to pay the state.
yeah, Oregon too.
Yeah.
Not here in Washington, but in Oregon too. But I mean, just stick with federal for a second because the federal government can't control what these individual states are doing. Is if the payroll tax is 15.3%. If you're self-employed, you pay the whole thing. If you're employed, you pay half, and the employer pays half. And it pays for absolutely nothing. As we've gone over on this channel 100 times, if you're brand new to this channel, it's MMT. Listen to our other shows, bring up more questions. We could yak about them here. But it pays for absolutely nothing, and it's regressive because you pay it on, I don't know the exact number, but you pay it on the first $100,000 that you make, roughly speaking. And then after that, it goes down to like 1%. It goes from so the first $100,000 you make, you get taxed 15%, and then after that, it's like 1%. Well, the income tax, at least it's graduated. It's the reverse of that. The more you make, you got to make more money before those bigger brackets hit. So to Nima's point, it's completely regressive. It hits the lowest people first. It hits the small business guy who's trying to pull himself up by his bootstraps the hardest. And we could just snap our fingers and get rid of it. That would lower everybody's expenses everywhere instantly with a stroke of a pen.
For sure.
To Boba's point.
Easy, yeah, easy stroke of a pen. You don't need to invest in any buildings. Don't need to hire any people. No giant government program needed. Just change some numbers on a piece of paper, and it'll have an instant, huge impact on the private sector and unemployment and wealth generation and wealth distribution in the country.
Here's Jesus has got an update here. This is going back to CEOs borrowing against their assets. Yes, borrow against your asset, like stock, house, life insurance policy. So he was referring more to what you said, Nima, not me. Eventually, we need to figure out a way for workers to thrive. I agree, get rid of payroll tax. Yeah, for workers to thrive, I think, Nima said it, the starting point needs to be a federal transition job. Because that is the logical necessity to the recognition of the fact that the government creates unemployment by demanding a tax in the arbitrary token it has the sole authority to create. So if you're going to demand a tax in this arbitrary token that you have the sole authority to create, you have to give everybody a way of getting that token so they can pay their tax. And the only way that makes sense, because right now the way it happens, I guess, is mainly through Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, military, and government contracts. Right? You somehow you either have to be on Social Security or get welfare or be connected to the DC swamp. I mean, not necessarily. You don't have to be connected to DC swamp to get a government contract, but the big ones you do,
Yeah.
right? I'm sure
Yeah.
you know.
Ugh.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
And what the federal transition job would do is it would put it at the very bottom and have that private sector net savings percolate from the bottom, as opposed to I hesitate to use this term, but I'm going to use it anyway. Trickle down from the top.
Yes. It would be incredible. It would be an incredible boost for the middle class and low income earners, and it should be done right away because it's easy. It's easy to change the words on a piece of paper. It doesn't take a lot of effort and helps a lot of people.
Yes.
It
Well, and
hurts
I think
nobody.
another big one, and this is not easy to change. I don't necessarily know the answer to this. Is I completely agree with Warren Mosler that the cost of healthcare needs to be taken out of labor. Because right now, for the most part, healthcare, I mean, unless you're broken, you're on the state's healthcare. Healthcare is a function of your employment. You work for, Boeing's a big one where I live. Everybody and their dog over here works for Boeing. Boeing has this great health insurance. Part of the perks of working for Boeing is your health insurance. And so when you fly a plane and you're paying for your plane ticket, a good chunk of that plane ticket is paying for all the health insurance of all the Boeing employees, right? Is getting the cost of healthcare out of the production ladder. And now how you do that, that's the big question, right? I keep thinking about what Warren Mosler said in that debate that he did with Bob Murphy so many years ago. What were we going to say?
He says that universal health care, excuse me, is a deflationary event because it would eliminate an incredible cobweb of bureaucracy throughout the entire country. And a lot of people would lose their jobs and be laid off from all kinds of whatever, I don't know, private insurers, health insurance agencies, and medical boards and whatnot. I don't know. I mean,
Well, and healthcare companies, I can give a specific example of that when you're done.
yeah. No, that's his argument as why it's a deflationary event. Universal healthcare might end up being cheaper than whatever this current system is supposed to be called that we're that we have in the U.S.
Oh, gee, Jesus, why did you open up this box? Oh, this can of worms. Okay, look at this comment. Do you two see the insurance industry as a tax? It extracts monthly payments and then it can go belly up and not pay. They give the illusion of a safety net to protect yourself from accidents or dangers. He writes.
Well, I don't see it as a tax because a tax deletes money from the private sector. An insurance interest revenue just moves money from one part of the private sector to another that then earns it in a profit.
I think he's looking at it from the viewpoint of the individual, Nima, not the aggregate. Like, me being this person paying health insurance and car insurance and house insurance and blah, 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 insurance, is that function like a tax on my personal income because there's a good chance even if I pay the insurance, something happens and I make the claim, I'm not going to get made whole for all this insurance I paid my whole life. Similar to the way the taxes work. I pay all these taxes my whole life and I don't necessarily get anything from it. Jesus, you can confirm or deny if that's what you meant.
Well, you're getting peace of mind is what you're buying in the moment. That's really what it is. And you're agreeing to what the insurance is supposed to cover for the rate that you pay them. To the extent that you have choice between competing suppliers, I wouldn't look at it as a tax. If it's some mandatory insurance and you only have one supplier to choose from, yeah, then I guess it is kind of like a tax, if that's what you're talking about.
Well, and then let me give some personal experience on insurance. So I used to be a project manager and an estimator in the restoration industry. So for when property insurance for houses, mostly residential, and mostly water damage. So if the water damaged your house, you'd make an insurance claim, and a company would come in and dry it out, rip it out, and then put it back together. I was a project manager and estimator for putting it back together, and I could just tell you horror story after horror story of, I mean, homeowners, contractors, and insurance adjusters, right? Of the insurance adjuster just denying it for stupid reasons, or not providing enough money to get it done, or just taking forever. I mean, I remember I got a job one time handed to me. I walked into the guy's house. The damage had happened to 9 months prior. So yeah, I mean, there's this, and I don't necessarily think this is a government solution. I mean, maybe government has some part of it, but there is a large aspect of insurance where you think you're paying and you're getting this peace of mind because you're going to be made whole if an accident happens, but the accident happens and you're just like, when are you going to come fix the fucking thing that happened? Why is it like, what's going on? Why is this taking forever?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
what I don't like about the financial services industry in general and the insurance industry in particular is that they are such an attractive target to compromise from ideological state actors. For example, what they've been trying to do for a long time is to make banks adjust their lending standards based on climate change ideology.
Getting water. Keep talking.
Yeah. And insurance companies in the capitalist economy around the world are such incredibly powerful institutions, and they know so much about everyone in they basically know collectively everything about every square meter of the country and every individual in the country. They have so much knowledge, so they're naturally very attractive targets for intelligence actors such as CIA, Mossad, etc., to get their fingers into and to manipulate and gather information from and utilize for all kinds of power programs. So that's why I would prefer if insurance companies could be small and competitive agencies and not these giant behemoths that are occasionally in some states actually imposed on the population. Because, for example, in California, right, they made it, or all over the country at one point, there was this mandate for health insurance. And in certain states, you don't have a lot of choices to pick from. Like in California, health insurance, for example.
Same in Washington.
Yeah, so now it becomes kind of like a state imposition upon you, and it becomes kind of like a tax. So I can see what you're saying in that regard.
Well, and then I mean, the health insurance conversation is like a totally categorically different conversation from all the other insurances. But I think
Right.
your point still stands: is if you've created a structure, a system where you have to get it, and the insurance company doesn't really need to provide
Right.
you much because you have to get it.
Right.
That's not a good
Yeah.
position to be in. No.
Yeah, I mean that's to me that's practically a tax. I would say, that's a fee that I'm forced to pay regardless of what my decision is. Actually, it's very much functions like a tax paid to a state public-private entity, essentially.
We got totally derailed from this article. I'm going to bring it up. We got one piece left, although we kind of, I think we already addressed it, but let's read this part anyway. Okay, point number 4. Here we go. Remember, we're talking about Trump's inauguration economic 4 points in his speech. Trump said he would issue deporting immigrants. Trump said he would issue executive orders on immigration, a major focus of his campaign rhetoric, including deporting immigrants. He said he would declare a national emergency at the southern border, deploy the military to stop illegal immigration, and remove unauthorized immigrants who are already in the country. We will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came, he said. Restricting immigration and deporting immigrants could have a profound effect on the economy, Nima. Especially industries such as home building, where unauthorized immigrants make up a large portion of the workforce. Who's going to build your house, Nima?
Well, currently I only have immigrant workers demolishing my building, so to me, actually, it would be a huge win for them to be deported. But
Don't get Nima started on that. We'll be here forever. Although I feel bad for him. He's in a pretty screwed up situation with his HOA. No, I mean, again, this just reminds me of these stupid, nonpartisan, unbiased, neutral motherfuckers. And for example, with the Bukele idea of, oh, don't arrest don't arrest all the
So
criminals at once because
let
that
me
might have a negative economic impact.
let me just this last section about immigration,
Oh,
right?
bring it back
Can you
up. Yeah.
not remove it? Um, where so this is about so Trump has said we will begin the process of returning criminal aliens. So illegal immigrants and criminal aliens are going back home. And then this final paragraph says restricting immigration, deporting immigrants could have profound effect on the economy. That's not the policy though. There's no policy of deporting immigrants. The policy is deport illegal immigrants, which has always been the policy of every country all over the world. And he's just saying that he wants to do that. It's the same argument as Bukele. Oh no, Bukele is going after these criminals and they can't spend money in the economy anymore. Boo hoo.
Yeah, it's just dumb. And then it goes back to what's our unemployment rate here, right? Like where I mean, I understand like people need training and you can't, they're
I
not
think
just
it's
like
4.9%
replaceable
or so.
drones or whatever. But we got this huge population of people that are unemployed and where the wages are too low or whatever. And why can't we use our own population?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. That's
And I'm also really
absolutely
curious if these people do go out, what's going to happen to the housing market? Because if you've got 10 million or 20 million or people or whatever that go,
yeah. Duh. I mean, that's never the argument. Somehow, that's a very obvious issue that people have, like I said, people have seen this in their faces now, in their communities, buildings being sort of commandeered in some cases by states and governments. I don't know if in the US, but certainly in the UK and in Germany, this has to some extent happened. And then that's not available to the domestic population. And then the domestic population has to look at the ridiculously high rents that they've never seen before and deal with that kind of stuff. So that's a huge anti-inflationary effect right there of
dude.
deporting people.
Just wait a second. Wait a second. There's a link here. This is gonna. Your brain's gonna fry. Let me click on this link. So this is an article talking about the inflationary effects of deporting the illegal immigrant workforce. Make sure you're sitting down. I glanced through this real quick. Will deporting immigrants make homes affordable? Trump thinks so, but home builders disagree.
Yeah. No cheap labor. Yeah.
So
Whatever.
Trump's presidential campaign, I don't want to read the whole thing. I just want to go over this and hit the important points. So they're talking about how Trump and Vance want to deport everybody because that's bad. Indeed, prices have gone up 50%. Hourly wages have risen 23% over the same period. Ever since something. High price of deportations. Here we go. But would expelling illegal immigrants help matters? Studies have linked immigration with increased rents. However, recent research suggests that removing immigrants could actually worsen the housing affordability problem in the long run, Nima. Yeah, again, a study published by by whoever, and researchers at some other place.
Yeah, some different people have different opinions on this matter, but there are at least two different effects of deporting immigrants. Not all inflationary necessarily. Maybe some inflationary direction and some deflationary direction. And not that these people give a shit about inflation ever, anyway.
Right.
It's just that when it helps them. Like, I think this is now, well, I just had a stroke of genius, I guess. Inflation is one of the most important issues at the moment, right? According to surveys and polls, because we have seen such large inflation in the 2021 to 22 and so on, inflation has become this big issue, right? Everyone's talking. Trump talked about. Trump hammered Biden on it. So then there's these people who realize, okay, inflation is an important issue. So now we're just going to say that all the things we don't like cause inflation.
Right. I think that's exactly what's happening. I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah. That's how their algorithm works, I guess. It's like very robotic.
Have you seen this? I've been seeing this on Twitter that Elon Musk and Trump rigged the 2024 election with computers.
I have not seen this, and I
Yeah,
don't give a
so
shit.
I think they're doing exactly what you said, which is that, oh, this election integrity is a big thing, and elections get stolen, so we'll just say Trump stole the election, which, man, I hope they run with that, because the obvious answer is to prevent Trump and Elon Musk from ever stealing an election again, we obviously need voter ID in all states.
Absolutely, yeah.
Right? We could fix this once and for all. Trump, the Republicans will never ever steal. The conservatives will never ever steal an election. Voter ID everywhere.
Yeah, agree.
Nima,
Yeah.
what else you got?
Nothing.
I'm running out of steam. We got to the whole article. Overall, I'm excited about Trump being the president. There's a lot of we'll sees here. I mean, we're still we'll seeing on what happens on day one with his various executive orders he promised and all the things that were supposed to happen within 24 hours.
Yeah, we should have maybe had the whole inauguration coverage behind us, like on a screen.
Oh, you got that screen right behind you, right there.
Right. No, I mean behind the big, the like.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Cosmic screen right now, because then we may have picked up on certain things here and there. There were some executive orders signed already. Then they went to lunch, and then there was some more at the military ceremony. But another thing I heard is all those who've been discharged from the military for refusing the COVID vaccine will be reinstated with full back pay. Apparently,
I like that one. I like that one.
That's one of the executive orders. Yeah.
I wonder
And
how
more
many
to
are going to
come.
be challenged in court tomorrow.
The ACLU.
Yeah.
The freedom from imposing vaccine, the freedom to impose vaccine mandates is important civil liberty.
Yes. Okay, well, Jesus seems to have run out of questions as well. So this has been Dylan Moore.
No, he has
What?
one more question. We can
Oh.
and should be using our own population. We should have started when corporations exported manufacturing to China. We freed up labor that should have been deployed to rebuild our infrastructure. Amen. And not in China.
I concur. China can go to hell, which apparently it's in the process of doing because they've one-child policy themselves literally to death. So have fun, China.
Yeah, they're shrinking.
Have fun, China. Okay, this has been Dylan Moore and Nima Majur of Irida TV. Check us out at irida.tv. Subscribe to our YouTube channel or any other channel that we have that you can find on our website. And if you have any questions, join us for our next live round. And we appreciate you. We appreciate you watching. We'll see you next time.